What's up, guys? I'm really thinking about making an intro for these videos, so you'll probably see that next time. But anyways, we're about 6 days out from UFC Fight Night 126 in Austin, Texas, and I've got some main card predictions for you. The Jessica Aguilar versus Souza fight is no longer happening, and I don't think they have a replacement fight. So I'm just going to be predicting the other 5 fights on the main card, and without any further ado, let's get right into these. For the first fight, we have Super Sage Northcutt, who's had sort of a rocky UFC career. He's kind of gone back and forth between wins and losses, but to be fair, he's undefeated at lightweight still. His only losses have come at welterweight, and he will be fighting Thibault Gouti, who was on the Ultimate Fighter and lost, and then he lost 3 straight UFC fights by finish, which usually would result in you getting cut from the UFC, but he was kept around, and he ended up winning a fight against Andrew Holbrook by knockout. So he's back in the game, and unfortunately I think he's going to be back out because I do not see him beating Sage Northcutt. Sage has made a lot of improvements in his game since he joined Team Alpha Male, and his wrestling and ground game specifically. Sage will obviously have the striking advantage because he comes from that karate background, and I don't think Thibault's going to be able to take him down. So I see Sage winning by decision. That's what I think is most likely. And then I also could see Sage winning by knockout, but he hasn't really gone in for the kill lately. So I'm going to say the most likely outcome is Sage Northcutt by decision. Next up, we have Thiago Alves versus Curtis Millender. Thiago is a UFC veteran who's been fighting in the organization since I think around 2008, and this is Curtis Millender's UFC debut. He's been fighting in LFA. He's on a 6-fight win streak, and his last 2 wins have come by knockout. But one thing that I don't really agree with is how soon Curtis is fighting since his last fight. He fought on January 12th, and he's fighting again in the UFC on February 18th. I think that's probably too soon. I feel like you'd want a longer camp than that for your first UFC fight. But on the other hand, Thiago has had 2 back-to-back canceled bouts, so he's been in camp for probably a long time. I think he's going to be more prepared, on top of the fact that he's a veteran and already the more experienced guy. So with this fight, I gotta say Thiago wins. I think Curtis's only way to win would be to knock out Thiago, and I really don't see that happening. So I'm going to have to say that Thiago wins this one by decision. Next up, we have James Vick, who just knocked out Joe Duffy, versus Francisco Trinaldo, who just beat Jim Miller by decision. James is going to have a 6-inch reach advantage. He's the taller guy as well, and he uses his reach really well when he's striking. So when this fight is on the feet, I see James Vick winning in the striking exchanges. And I also don't think it would be a good idea for Francisco to take James down, because James is also really efficient with his submissions. So I see James winning in every situation in this fight. I think the matchmakers succeeded in finding James a fight that he had a really good chance of winning at home. So I see James either winning by submission or decision. For the co-main event, we have Derrick Lewis versus Marcin Tybura. I see this fight going 2 ways. I think Derrick Lewis could either win by an early knockout or Marcin Tybura could win by decision, because as we've seen in some of Derrick's most recent fights, especially the Mark Hunt fight, he's had back problems, he's had cardio problems. He's saying that he's been taking magnesium shots in his back, which has helped out with that, but I don't know how much it's going to be able to hold up in the fight. And even though Marcin lost his last fight against Fabricio Verdum, he still lasted 5 rounds with a guy as good as Fabricio, so his cardio is on point. So I think that if Marcin can survive the first round without getting knocked out, it'll start to tip more and more in favor of him, and I see him winning by decision. I know that Derrick Lewis is planning to call out Francis Ngannou if he does win this fight, and personally that is a matchup that I'd really want to see. But I don't think Derrick Lewis is going to win this fight. I think it's more likely that he gasses out in the first round, maybe the second round, and can't knock out Marcin, and then Marcin ends up winning by decision. Marcin also has a ground game advantage, so if this does happen to go to the ground, which I don't really think it will, Marcin will come out on top. But I just see Marcin getting on his bicycle and maybe peppering Derrick Lewis with shots, trying to gas him out, and then winning by decision. Finally, for the main event, we have Donald Cowboy Cerrone versus Yancy Medeiros. Cowboy is on a 3-fight losing streak, and he most recently got knocked out by Darren Till in the first round. And Yancy Medeiros is on a 3-fight winning streak, and he most recently had a fight of the night versus Alex Oliveira, who coincidentally is also called Cowboy. I think Cowboy is making a mistake by not going back down to lightweight. I don't really think there's a place for him at welterweight. There's too many people that he won't beat. I also think he's a little bit over the hill. He had a good performance 2 fights ago against Robbie Lawler, but then I realized that Robbie was also pretty over the hill. I definitely think this fight is winnable for Cowboy. He has really good striking, but Yancy Medeiros is really durable. He can take a lot of damage and still come back, as we saw in his last fight. And Cowboy, as of recent, has not been very durable. So I see Yancy Medeiros beating Cowboy by finish. I think he can knock Cowboy out or TKO him in probably the 2nd or 3rd round. And if that does happen, I think Cowboy should either move back down to lightweight or retire, because he's not going to have success at welterweight. And I think he deserves to finish up on a win. So if Cowboy does lose by knockout or TKO, I think he should try to go back down to lightweight and win like 1 or 2 more fights. Thanks for watching, guys. That's going to be it for this video. I appreciate the support. If you have predictions that differ from mine, like always, feel free to comment those. And other than that, I'll see you next time.